Several months had passed since the harrowing encounter involving the dead daughter-in-law. Early January, in the midst of the New Year holidays and just before Christmas Eve, I found myself seated in my cabin, wrapped in a thick blanket since the early hours of the morning. Soft music played in the background as I squinted at the monitor, attempting to distinguish shapes through the poor lighting provided by the cameras. Something kept catching my attention, fleeting shadows dancing at the edges of my vision. Was it my imagination playing tricks on me, or was there indeed something unusual happening in the park? My gaze centered on a rapidly moving figure sprinting along the cleared paths. Oddly quick for the icy conditions, the runner wore loose clothing. A jacket, wide pants, a scarf trailing behind, and a Mushenka hat. I mused that the person must be quite hardy to withstand the winter cold dressed so scantily. Time dragged on as I observed the mysterious runner completing lap after lap around the park. Abruptly, they halted before one of the cameras and threw snowballs, aiming erratically. Clearly frustrated, they resorted to climbing the pole holding the camera, but the metal proved too slick. Next, they jumped futilely, attempting to touch the lens. Bewildered, I leaned closer to the monitor, utterly confused by the obstacle impeding their objective. Growing impatient, they collapsed onto the path, panting heavily. Concerned, I rushed to the scene, flashlight in hand. The runner lay unmoving, muttering nonsensical phrases and occasionally waving a limp hand. Blinding light reflected off their sweat-drenched forehead, and their features blurred into a devilish apparition. I bent down to inspect them more closely, but they suddenly grasped my wrist with surprising strength, sending my flashlight flying. Their grin widened, teeth gleaming in the dim light. I fought to release myself from their ironclad grip, fearing a fractured wrist. Retrieving the flashlight, I struck their temple, eliciting a moan as they released me. Gasping for breath, I staggered backward, hurrying toward the safety of my cabin. Slamming the door, I locked it and backed away, surveying the park through the cameras. Where had the runner disappeared to? Minutes ticked by, punctuated by fervent knocking and muffled cursing from the enraged stranger. I dialed the police, explaining the predicament as the drunkard assaulted the door and window, bellowing like a deranged beast. Mercifully, the racket ceased, and I assumed the aggressor had dispersed. Yet, as I listened keenly, a foul substance splattered against the window. The inebriated man had begun defecating on the window, giggling madly as if thoroughly enjoying his revolting performance. Smearing filth across the glass, he taunted me mercilessly, spewing profanities and launching waste at my doorstep. Mortified, I prayed for rescue, helplessly gazing at the offensive spectacle. Throughout the ordeal, the assailant emptied his stomach contents beneath the door, shouted vulgarities, and continued pelting my cabin with fecal matter. Finally, the police arrived, hauling the belligerent troublemaker away. Swearing and invoking divine intervention, he babbled about being Jesus Christ's son, Mary's brother, and commander of his heavenly harem. Traumatized by the incident, I quit drinking altogether, fearing I might suffer a similarly humiliating breakdown. As the drunken man was whisked away by the police, I was left in the aftermath of the disgusting debacle. I surveyed the damage, wrinkling my nose at the odious smell permeating my cabin. Filthy streaks marred the window, and remnants of vomit littered the floorboards. Fatigue swept over me, but I knew sleep would be impossible in such squalid conditions. Cleaning up the mess demanded considerable effort and time, yet I tackled the task with grim determination. By the time I finished, sunlight bathed the park in a soft glow, marking the end of another long night. Memories of the incident lingered, reinforcing my choice to abstain from alcohol. In the following days, I reviewed the security footage, noting the runner's recklessness and apparent inebriation. My pulse raced as I imagined the consequences had I not intervened. Thoughts of that night still sent shivers down my spine. I had successfully protected the park and prevented potential harm to other visitors. More importantly, the incident underscored the importance of vigilance in my role as a park guard. As the third installment of my Park Guard Chronicles approaches, I encourage you to share your reactions and theories in the comments below. Subscribing to